Welcome back. Today we will be debadging a 2004 Dodge Viper. Now, as I said in an earlier video on this car, I've got a bunch of letters that are either missing, like the R in SRT, or that are starting to peel off, like the E on the Viper here on the back corner. All the letters on this car are sold as a set. I'm gonna have to replace them all anyhow to make them all look the same down the road. So for that reason, I am debadging this car. In order to debadge a car, you either need a heat gun or a hair dryer. Heat guns, if you do use them, get a lot hotter, so it's a lot easier to melt or start damaging the paint or the plastics. I will be using a hair dryer instead of a heat gun. However, as long as you're careful and you don't put it too close to the actual bumper or whatever panel that you're heating up, you should be fine. The other thing you're going to need is either fishing line or dental floss. I'm going to be using dental floss today. What we're effectively going to do is hit this with a heat gun. It's going to loosen up the adhesive behind these. Then we're going to take our floss and rub it back and forth and effectively saw off all the letters. When you're doing the sawing motion, if you have a bunch of dirt or grit in the area you're working in, you do have the potential for it to scratch into the paint. For that reason, I'm going to clean up the areas we'll be working in real quick, and then we'll go from there.
Doing a full car wash is ideal, but a spot clean with some soapy water and a microfiber towel like I'm doing here is perfectly acceptable.
Now that everything is cleaned correctly, we're going to be using this hair dryer, and what we want to do is warm up the paint, but not get it super hot in just one area. You're just looking to make that adhesive a little bit looser. That way it'll be a little more pliable when you go to peel all the lettering off. Now, after you get it up to temp, it's going to be a really quick switch into breaking out the floss, trying to hook it underneath and saw these off. So a couple tips, if you've never done this, don't sit in only one spot with the heat gun or the blow dryer. You want to keep it going across so you don't get one big hot spot. That can damage your paint if you do sit in that one spot for too long. And then the second thing is when you have your floss or your fishing line and you're putting it behind to try to saw these things off, what you want to do is not pull it hard and like force it off, because again, you could scratch your paint or damage your paint. You want to be nice and gentle, and if it's not coming off super easy, try to give it a little bit more heat with the heat gun or your blow dryer. That's enough talking about it for now. Let's give this thing a shot.
Now with a heat gun or a blow dryer, you don't want to get too close, because if you get too close and you get the paint too hot, it will damage the paint locally. So what you'll see me doing here is a lot of small circular motions and a lot of back and forth to try to cover the whole area, bring the whole area up to temp rather than just with the individual letter and nothing else. Now with the blow dryer, like I said, it doesn't get as hot. You can get it a few inches closer to the surface of the paint than you can with a heat gun. With a heat gun, you just have to be a lot more cautious, but it will get it up to temp faster. So it's really the risk versus reward of the patience of heating it up slower versus the risk of overheating the area. If you haven't done this before, I don't recommend going straight to the heat gun. Now I tried to see if soapy water would loosen up the adhesive, but heat is really the only thing that's going to effectively work here. If you're having difficulty getting the letter to come off, try hitting it from a different angle, hitting it from the other edge of the letter. You kind of see me switch sides on this V from which angle I approach it from, and then I eventually get a finger underneath and then pry it off, but that has other issues as well. If your letters are thin, they might bend. That's kind of the risk of prying it off.
The V is now off. We have it here, and you can see it got a little bit bent as it got pulled out. You can get a finger behind it and then pry it off like I just did there, but just realize if you do that, you're not going to be able to reuse these letters. As I've said, I already have to order a new set of letters for the whole car anyhow to replace any of these, so for me that's not a huge deal, but if you're looking to put them back on in the future, this might not be the method for you. We do have some adhesive left here, as you can see. I'm going to be using some Goo Gone to try to get that off. You could also use soapy water or whatever. I wouldn't use something like acetone. Acetone's going to be too aggressive and will probably eat into your paint. I also wouldn't recommend scraping this off even with a plastic scraper, because the chances of it catching and then releasing and you going too fast across the paint, that's a really high chance if you try to take this off with a scraper, so I wouldn't do it that way either. That is why I'm using the Goo Gone. This is orange base. It's actually a fairly natural product and it gets pretty good results, so let's go ahead and take care of that now.
Even with the Goo Gone, I had to dig in with my thumbnail behind the microfiber towel to really get into the adhesive and remove it. Then at the end, wash away all the excess Goo Gone with some soapy water.
We now have all of the adhesive off as well. As you can kind of see there, I'm trying to get it started at the edge with my fingernail. And then that way it exposes just a little bit more for me to get the Goo Gone underneath. So it does take a little bit of elbow grease. I also sprayed it down at the end with my soapy water just to try to get any residual Goo Gone off of there. I don't think it's really gonna hurt the paint if there is some left on there, but I'm just trying to pull the bulk of it off there so it's easier to wash later. So afterwards, if you go over and you feel it again with your fingertip, you might feel a little small bump here or there that you might miss with the eye. So I would recommend recommend definitely checking with your actual finger to make sure you got everything off. But other than that, once the surface is cleaned off, you are good to go. Now, obviously, you're not going to stop after one letter. You're going to go through and get all the letters. For the sake of time, I only showed doing the one. I didn't show doing all of them because I've got a lot to do, but it's just going to be that same thing over and over around the entire car. So there is one more method other than just sawing it with the dental floss or the fishing line, and we're going to try that right now. On the dental floss cap, this little cap here, it's kind of a little bit of a wedge shape. This is also a very soft plastic. So we're going to go in and heat these up quite a bit to get that adhesive nice and tacky again and loosen it up. Then we're going to come in from a few different angles and just use this as a wedge to get it out. So obviously I would never do this on a car that I really care about the paint for, and I know you're thinking, why would you do it on a Dodge Viper? This car, I already have a plan to get the paint corrected anyhow. I already got that lined up and I've got a quote and an appointment set up, and if you check any of my other videos, you'll see why. This has already got a bunch of little micro scratches. Like, you could even see some a little bit right there. This isn't a great camera, so it might not pick them up, but this thing has horrible paint on it. As such, it's not a huge deal if I get a little bit of micro scratches from prying these off, because I already know I'm sending it to a shop to have all the paint corrected, and it will also take out any new scratches I add from this. It is a much faster method to get them off, and it doesn't have to be all of one method versus the other. You can get it started with the floss and then end it with this. It's kind of up to your personal preference of how much risk you want to take with the paint on your car. Just to show it on this one, I'm only going to use the pry method and I'm not going to use the sawing method. Granted, this letter is substantially smaller than that V I was doing using the other method on the other side of the car. However, for a comparable size letter, even this is a faster method, but like I said, it does put you at bigger risk for damaging your paint. As you can see, I hit it from multiple sides, and then once I got it far enough under, you can start just lifting it here at the back to pry it up a little bit, and then you can finish it off with your hand. Then after that, it's going to be the same step of getting rid of all this extra adhesive using Goo Gone or something similar, and then washing the area of the car off and then re-waxing. Now I got to finish off the rest of the car still, but I'm going to end this video here. Hopefully this helps you guys out, and thank you for watching.